I'm back. Sorry, it's been a while, but I guess I'm now the DVD guy. Okay, I'm joking. My title, of course, will be the Four Souls guy. Greetings, humans and non-humans out there. Today, I would like to discuss a forgotten chapter that may not be appreciated as much as I thought it would. I'm referring to the Resident Evil chapter for Dead by Daylight and what it's brought to the game and its impact. To clarify, I'm going to talk about the DLC itself, not its rocky release, and that's the rocky release date I'll talk more about in the map section of the video, but I really do believe this is, hands down, the best chapter of Dead by Daylight itself, like, objectively, and I'll explain why in a bit later. Oh boy, when it was announced that we're gonna get a Resident Evil chapter, I remember this day. I was playing a match of DVD, and I remember, I was playing Trapper, I believe. Trapper or Myers, most likely Trapper, but it doesn't matter. I remember, it was the middle of the match, I saw this notification on screen. Resident Evil announcement for DVD or something like that. I don't remember the title, but, it's splatted somewhere here. And basically, this was, the announcement video from the Dead by Daylight channel that was from the Resident Evil anniversary stream, that we're getting a DVD crossover. I was like, oh my goodness. And one thought came to my mind. Yo, that's a groovy umbrella charm. And also, the Nemesis T-Type better be the killer for this chapter. Listen here. I'm not the biggest Resident Evil fan. I do love watching videos, analyzing, critiquing, and playing Resident Evil games, talking about the lore and stuff. But my favorite part of the whole franchise that got me, into it to begin with was the designs of the enemies and what they can do. So, naturally, I grew up fond of the Nemesis T-Type. I'm not sure how many videos I watched about him, how much websites I went through, finding out every single lore about him, finding about some exclusive comics from different countries out there, the novelization of the game of the Resident Evil 3. I just really like Nemesis T-Type. And when you think of Resident Evil, one of many things come to mind. And one of these things that comes to mind is the theming of the dangers of bioweapons. And I believe Nemesis is one of the most iconic ones. Also, Nemesis kind of has a special place in my heart for his relatable backstory. Like, have you ever been told, about a task, just a very simple one, something that could be easily done by you since you're basically designed to do such tasks, only to struggle over and over, and it's just a simple part, but you keep trying and trying. You evolve your tactics. You even change yourself to the point where you don't even recognize yourself anymore, just to fail at the end. Nemesis' story is something that hit me really hard for how relatable it was for such a character. I was a person that was, I guess we're going into a mini story time. I was supposed to organize a show for my farm class in high school. It was all perfect and dandy until I had to deal with some heavy containers that I just couldn't lift. I tried and tried so hard to the point where I think I pulled a muscle because it was all messed up for a while, for many days. I didn't let that stop me though. I tried so many ideas, but nothing would work. I ended up even ruining my shirt for the day. All this just for the teacher to replace me and basically referring to the situation as a failure. I was that Nemesis, and those containers were my jail. I was persistent and never gave up, but even though I had the determination, I still failed at the end. I became something I didn't even recognize at that point. And I think many people out here can relate to this. Like, being a top student and failing at a test that you studied for a long time. That test, for some weird reason, was just out of your grasp. Or being a person with the most greenest thumb, just to have a plant that you're working on to die. Many of us have became the Nemesis and encountered our Jill. And also, like, who else would DBD have chosen? Like, no one from Resident Evil Village would make sense since they were new at the time and none of the characters would actually fit well in the game. Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7 or anyone from Resident Evil 7 would sound nice on paper, but like, they're not iconic to the franchise. When I think about Resident Evil, me and many other people, the first characters they come to mind are Jill, Chris, Leon, Claire, Mr. X, Nemesis, Wesker, Rebecca, Lisa, Barry, the Birkins, etc. Why do these things bubble up? Well, it's pretty simple. When a lot of people think of Resident Evil, they think about these two simple moments. The Spencer Mansion and the Raccoon City incident. Has their very iconic moments in the whole franchise. Just, like think about it. Like, there's so many games, Resident Evil games, but for some reason, we have remakes and spin-offs and this and that take place in the first 3 games. It's just simply, they're just very iconic, moments right here. Resident Evil, a lot of people think about zombies, bioweapons, running amok, shooting them down and whatnot, trying to survive the horrors, and yeah, it's usually what I call the golden era of Resident Evil. Now, within this era of Resident Evil, there's only a few potential candidates that could be the DBD killer. Those were the Nemesis T-Type, Mr. X, William Birkin, and I guess you could squeeze in Lisa in there, but I don't know. But out of those choices, it's pretty easy. The Nemesis T-Type basically became Pyramid Head of the Resident Evil franchise for a while. He was appearing in many spin-offs, crossover games, films, comics, etc. Nemesis TO2, which is the name of our Nemesis, is just really, iconic for what he did. Depending on which version of Nemesis we're talking about, he eliminated, Brad or not, which just proved the point that he actually could kill a STARS member. But then again, it's Brad. Poor Brad. Sorry, Brad, for dissing you. The Nemesis T-Type became very iconic as he was pretty groovy, just for being an enemy that follows you throughout the whole game. Had many cool transformations and attacks. He just came in, with this bopping and intimidating soundtrack, and it's also his famous catchphrase, "Stars." I can't do a STARS impersonation. I don't know. Just insert the audio voice. Stars. His design was cool. His outfit was cool. His boots, his weird tentacle thing on his shoulder, his amazing face. Nemesis was not messing around. His popularity skyrocketed, which made him, a candidate for Marvel vs. Capcom's fighting games out there. Wait, there's only 2 he was in, but you get what I mean. Infinite was the game that gave us the HD classic Nemesis. Ooh, boy, just look at that clean model. Then Resident Evil 3 Remake happened. Now, I'm going to keep this part brief, as I do want to talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake someday, but, TLDR, Nemesis T-Type was drastically changed, and you could easily tell someone who isn't a Resident Evil fan that classic Nemesis and modern Nemesis are 2 different characters, and they would most likely believe me. That's just a bad, take for a design. Like, if you got classic Sonic and modern Sonic, you could tell it's just an evolution of the same character. I mean, granted, you could be weird and say, oh yeah, that's Sonic's younger brother over there, but no, that's not the case here. These 2 Nemesis, they're not the same. They're just 2 drastically different. But the design isn't bad. It's just the faces would bother me. The outfit, I really love how it sells the idea that the Nemesis T-Type is a prototype and isn't like a finished model like Mr. X or any other T-103 tyrants out there. Those are finished, BOWs, which is why they have a nice, prim, proper, and dapper attire. The Nemesis T-Type's clothes indicates that he isn't finished and was just quickly, gave something to wear in order to strive well in the Raccoon City incident. The part that bothers me is clearly it stayed the face. Maybe one day we could get classic Nemesis in DVD, but something tells me Capcom doesn't want us to, see old Nemesis and just wants to have the new modern designs from here on out. Also, Nemesis T-Type is literally the definition of I'm Mr. X, but better. because he's literally a T-103 Tyrant with an NE Alpha parasite implanted in him. So literally anything Mr. X can do, Nemesis could do, but more. Even in the original Resident Evil 3 games, Nemesis just eats a T-103 Tyrant just right then and there to get a power up. So I don't see Mr. X or any other random T-103 Tyrant being in DBD over Nemesis simply because Nemesis is just simply the improved version of those characters. Also, I believe people just wanted Mr. X or T-103 Tyrants because of the Resident Evil 2 remake and how it did them justice. But before then, these were not iconic enemies. They're just a generic enemy. Like, I mean, sure, it was kind of cool seeing them, go through and original RE2, but like, Nemesis had the most potential gameplay-wise compared to any of our BOWs. And I'm super glad we got him in DBD, as I knew he belonged in DBD the most. He can now probably be part of Dead by Daylight's iconic Hall of Horrors. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about the gameplay. Well, the Nemesis T-Type, he plays in an above average killer, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not also a good thing. There is skill to his skill set, but there's also a skill ceiling that isn't as high compared to a lot of killers. And his power allows you to infect Survivor with his tentacle, which technically is not a tentacle since it's the parasite itself smacking you, but for simplicity we're just calling it a tentacle. And then you also use it to smack walls and pallets. And you basically you could do like this cool walks thing, basically it feels like you're walking through the pallet or doors, and it feels really cool, not gonna lie. And the Nemesis also comes with 2 zombies that are AI controlled that you can use to plan on looping. And it's really fun having zombies help finish off survivors, Oh man, I miss this Hopkins lab, but it was one of the good map, where I could just literally lure a survivor into a corner where a zombie could be there and finish them off. And man, it feels so great having a zombie helping you out. Also, they're really fun to have around for the fact that if survivors are trying to heal or work in gens or a totem, zombies and sees the survivor there, like basically forces them to go away or try to kill off the zombie with a pallet or head on or whatever. I mean, I know you could blind them, but I really like this. It adds another layer of interaction besides worrying about the Nemesis. And the zombies really do add a lot to the character. Also, there's vaccines that spawn in the map, which, side note, this is the first, DLC that included limited time in-match items. I'm not sure. This is probably a proper name for these items, but basically the T-Virus antidote, and later we'll talk about flashbangs, are items that can only be obtained in the DVD match you're playing in, and cannot be taken, in your own inventory for later uses. Which, that's an extra gameplay element that no one talks about, which was later, implemented for the next chapter of Hellraiser, where Pinhead's lament configuration box is actually an item that could spawn in the match that survivors can interact with, and also Pinhead can interact with, which is really cool. But this is not the Hellraiser review. This is the Resident Evil review. And despite all this, Nemesis is just really fun to play as. Like, as I mentioned, tentacle infects survivors, but after that you can start smacking them, and it's really fun and satisfying once you discover like which areas the tentacle could go over and attack survivors, and understand how Nemesis tentacle has a hitbox that could be slide to the left and right in a bit in a way that still hits them. It's kind of tricky to explain. You gotta watch someone like Artstava who explains how the Nemesis tentacle hits. But once you understand it, it feels satisfying, man. And also the punch. You gotta punch those survivors. Like, this is the first killer that actually can punch them right in the face. And, I guess you could be a toxic person and punch them while they're on the hook. And it just feels great. Just, punching those little, guys down. Ooh, sorry. It's getting the urge to play, Nemesis again, just for that reason. And also the sound effects, and even the little Easter egg where he says, stars. Oh, wait, sorry, this is Remake Nemesis. He says, stars. like stores. Like yeah, but what's not like to like about it? You know, this actually means that Nemesis is the first killer to speak English. Like, cause like sure we had Ash, who was the first character to speak English, and then we had Plague and the Trickster, but Trickster speaks Korean, the Plague speaks ancient Babylonian, but not an English killer. I mean, we had Pinhead's voice lines. Rest in peace, those voice lines. Seriously, man, I really hope they come back. Like, maybe Doug Bradley could do something, or I don't know. I have theories that maybe one day they will return with Doug Bradley's gonna do the voice, but it's off topic. It's really cool having Nemesis. Like, he's pretty much how I imagine to play as. Granted, there's some things that I thought he could do, like maybe like he would have like a mode stance, like a rage meter where he does like and like dashes real fast, or maybe at the end I remember saw a comment, I forgot who made this comment, or maybe it was a video where during the end game there would be like a rocket launcher supply crate that would fall from the sky far away from all the exit gates. So you have to make your way out there, and it takes time to open the crate and then equip the rocket launcher, then use it. I mean, granted, I guess even though it's a one-shot use and a one-shot down, I guess it would still be a bit overpowered. But it would be so cool. But it's fine. Despite that, yeah, Nemesis plays pretty much as how I remember. Also, I guess the only change I would do if I was the head of DBD, I would just make it where Nemesis would save stars more often. Like, maybe when he punches Nemesis, Jill or Chris, he has a 50% chance of saying it. He has a 100% chance when he puts them on the hook or when he downs them as well. I don't know, or starts a chase, there's a 25% chance he says stars. Like, I don't know, it just makes you feel like the Nemesis more. I'm just glad that we have Nemesis in here. That's all I could really say. It brings a smile into my face. I predicted the killer, and he's really fun to play as. Part 2, the survivors. Okay, I didn't expect to have like Dweller geeks out about Nemesis being in DVD, but let's try to make this quick as possible, survivors. When it came to survivors for the upcoming DVD chapter, I had a big brain idea. I was like, why don't they pull a Stranger Things and have 2 survivors? But also, what if those 2 survivors, one was male and one was female, so then we could have legendary skins, to have more of these characters, because Resident Evil had a problem where there's just too many iconic survivors, not survivors, characters here, and well, I thought real hard about this, and this is what I thought. I believe if we have Nemesis, we're gonna have to have Jill, and for the male survivor, people would think, it would be Chris, because Chris and Jill, but, like, I think Leon's more iconic than Chris. So, we're gonna have Jill and Leon, and we can have legendary cosmetics for Chris and Claire. Because, like, it's just having the other counterpart, because people think of Leon and Claire, and then Jill and Chris, but it wouldn't make sense to have Leon and Claire and the Nemesis Killer. It just wouldn't make sense. And it wouldn't make sense to have, I guess it would make sense just Jill and Chris, but then Nemesis. But, like, Leon has more skin potential than Chris, if we're being honest here. I mean, I guess, sure, we could have Resident 8, Chris, who's like, put your gun down, Ethan. No, we're like, no, Ethan, no. Oh, gosh, I just didn't like Resident Evil 8, Chris. What did they do to you, man? But, oh, gosh, it's like another topic in itself, Resident Evil 8, Chris, but yeah, it was pretty simple. Like, when it came to my favorite Resident Evil character, that's human, mind you. I have to specify that Jill's my favorite. Well, actually, no. My favorite protagonist is Ethan Winters. Even before Resident Evil 8, I just like Ethan Winters. But the discussion of Ethan Winters is gonna have to be its own separate video. That's why I love Resident Evil 7. But I knew Capcom, wants for some reason keep Ethan Winters' face a secret, despite us knowing what it looks like. Like it doesn't take too hard to look up the models and whatnot. But because of that, I knew we weren't gonna get Ethan Winters in DVD, and also like if he was the survivor, then the killer wouldn't make sense to be Nemesis at all. So that everything falls apart. When we think about it, unless it's a Resident Evil 7 chapter, then that would make sense. But this is a Resident Evil chapter, not Resident Evil 7 chapter. And so yeah, second would be Jill, third would be Leon, fourth would be Chris, sixth would be Rebecca, seventh would be Ada, then Barry, and then Brad, and then Claire. Okay, Claire's not that bad. Don't get me wrong. So yeah, this is how I predicted. Leon, Jill, Chris, Claire, those four in some way, those are the ones, and we got them. It felt great. I felt pretty smug about this. Now let's just talk about the perks real quickly. Jill and Leon's perks are really perfect for people that are starting out in DBD. Like, we have two fun perks that allow you to fight the killer, quote unquote, in some capacity. Jill's has a perk where she could plant an explosive that appears to be a flashbang on top of the generator. And I'm not sure we have a photo of this, but basically when the killer kicks or smacks or whatever they do to the generator, it explodes on their face, and it both stuns and blinds the killer for a moment, which, man, when you think about it, playing someone as a Legion who's just a normal human teenager, and they kick a generator, then poof, they take an explosion. I'm just glad they have a mask on, because, oh boy. Also, how do they see in those things? But the perk is really fun to run, as planting an explosive on a generator lights up the generator, so all survivors could see, which generator has it, which is pretty good for telling people, hey guys, this is the generator I'm working on. And also, it's just fun to see, the killer take even longer to kick those generators. Now, Leon, he has a very, very fun perk where he could craft a flashbang depending on how much of the generator progress he does. I mean, not depending, just he does a certain amount of generator progress, he has to craft a flashbang, which is really good for players. It encourages them to work on generators because of this. And because of the flashbang and because of Nemesis T-Virus antidote, this makes this the objectively best chapter of Dead by Daylight. Even better than Stranger Things, which at the time introduced, two survivors, one kill on the map. Resident Evil does the same thing, but introduces the whole new mechanic of in-match items, or whatever these things are called. And having a perk that summons a unique item. Literally, that this is something that no other chapter's done before. This is why I always say that Resident Evil is definitively the best chapter out there. And, I mean, I guess now, when I think about it, there's no Stranger Things DLC to buy, so it is the best chapter no matter what. You see it. Oh, demo. I'm gonna miss it so much. Also, Stephen, Nancy, and Jonathan. But demo, importantly, I mean, sure, I own them and people own them, but it's not the same knowing that new players can get them. But yeah. Now, I know flashbangs are just a reskin of a firecracker item, which, it's fine, but this is a way where you have access to this item without having to have a limited time event to get these items. You can also use this to blind the killer, which is really fun to use on a mid-chase, or to save a survivor friend, or just be a terrible person and just stun them with a pallet, break the pallet, you blind them again, and I mean, you could do that, but I mean, you just sound like a menace to killer kind. It's a fun perk to have for both new and veteran players. I still can't believe I predicted the characters right. The one thing I didn't predict was the map. Part 3. The map. When I thought about the Resident Evil chapter being Dead by Daylight, I thought they were going to pull a Silent Hill by having a killer survivors, because I mean I knew it was gonna be more than one. It would be impossible. It would felt weird if it was just one, but no, survivors and a map to represent different games. I predicted Spencer Mansion for Resident Evil so that the first game could have some representation along with Leon and Jill and Nemesis. So you have 1, 2, and 3 right there. But I really did want Raccoon City Streets, as I really want an urban city location map for survivors and killers to, have awesome fun chases here. But I was wrong to think Spencer Mansion or Raccoon City Streets. Instead, we got Raccoon City Police Department itself. Practically the whole thing. We got the 2 main floors, and you could say a 3rd floor if you count the library's upper section. And this map is my 3rd favorite map in DBD. Period. I'm really shocked that I'm actually a vocal minority when it comes to this opinion, because apparently a lot of the DBD community really dislikes this map. I don't really understand why not. There's so many fun places to find victims or hide from the killer. The save room music appears in the Resident Evil 2 remakes locations, where the save room would be if the killer's terror radius isn't present or you're not in the middle of a chase. There's a zombie that hangs out by the window, just pretty groovy. Like, also just imagine a killer like Ghostface passing by and seeing this zombie trying to break in. I wonder what's on their mind. I mean, for someone like Bill, it's no big deal, but for someone like Laurie Strode, this is something unworldly here. It's also fun to take advantage of layout. When you see a survivor going in one section, you decide to take a different direction, knowing a way to cut them off, and it's just really fun trying to do this. Like try playing Scratch Mirror Myers in RPD. You definitely catch them all off guard. All those survivors all freak out, and it's really fun playing as jump scares Myers. Like I did this, with Redstar and some other friends, and he was pretty spooked. Also, it's not hard to memorize where the generators, totems, and pallet spawns are. The hatch is the only thing that I have my complaint about this map. I don't like how it gets spawned on the 2nd floor, and I think the 3rd floor of the library. I haven't confirmed. I don't remember if I imagined that or not, but I feel like I had a match where that did happen. But for starters, it doesn't make sense perspective-wise. Secondly, it breaks the main rules of the hatch rules. As most people know, hatch always spawns on the ground level of the map, or on a hill, but not like on a 2nd floor of a building. And also it makes it more hard to find the hatch, since it could be anywhere in RPD. Despite the hatch problem, I really do hope players could give this map a chance. Like, it's so cool. We see the entity bleeding into the map and give it its own DBD twist to it. I just love the details, such as the yellow tape that tells you that this is a vaulting spot, like many other Resident Evil games. The Welcome Leon room, the flooded restroom, the helicopter where Mr. X shows up. There's so many cool, fun Easter eggs in this map, and I have so many fun chases in this map, and this is, oh man, I just really hope that people could enjoy this map. But there is something I would like to bring up. The chapter's release date. This was supposed to be the big chapter for the 5th anniversary. You boot up the game, you hear the menu, but before you get the menu, you hear this voice, Dead by Daylight, like a Resident Evil game, like Resident Evil. But but I think it was Nemesis voice actor saying it. But you go, you boot up the game, you see this epic menu with RPD in the background, and this awesome rendition of the DBD theme. I haven't talked about the music in this chapter, but yeah, the music's pretty good. Nemesis, terror radius, it's spooky. The chase music sounds good, and the DBD rendition of Resident Evil, super good. But yeah, you boot up the game, you pick a Resident Evil character, you play a match, and you find out, oh, the RPD map has been disabled. Well, that's a huge shame. Well, it's been out, it's been it's a big shame because it's been a whole year since we had a brand new map. The last new map was Silent Hill, And ever since then, the DBD team has been working on updating the old maps, which is a good thing, but it's just sad that we had many chapters of no new maps. And RPD was finally going to be something new to finally hunt people in or to be chased in around. And then it was just down. Well, that's pretty odd. It worked in the PTB, but I guess something went wrong during the public build. Good thing this will probably be a top priority, like along with some other bugs that were going on. Oh, what's that? We gotta wait a week for the next update. Okay, but at least they're gonna fix some bugs in RPD. What's that? Bugs are fixed, but RPD's still down? Okay, let me speed you up. They didn't fix RPD until the mid-patch. Let me explain why this left a somewhat sour taste in my mouth. When a new chapter is out with a new map, they tend to have the map increased odds for it to be chosen. People didn't get to play in RPD often, so because of that, people that hated the map never got used to the layout and enjoyed the map. As well as that, the Resident Evil tone left during the mid-chapter, because for some weird reason, DVD has it where during the mid-chapter, they go back to the default menu and the default music. Despite all of this, rough patch of how the map was released and whatnot, it was a bummer, but it didn't bother me as much, as I knew eventually bugs like this would be ironed out and we would get experience the characters and locations in a better state, because like trust me, like DBD wants to make sure that people want to play the game. Like, I know it's shocking, with the game being grindy and some new bugs showing up, but I know eventually they will be taken out. I mean, sure, new bugs show up, but you get the point. It's a game that's being worked on every single day, and they're trying to make sure it's playable and fun for new players and old players alike. I mean, sure, they do something questionable, but then they do something awesome. Like it's a cycle. It's they're only human. It's literally what I like to say. Despite all that, I'm fine. I still say this is the best chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters. Like, sure, I say it's the best chapter. I think Stranger Things might be my favorite chapter. Personally, I'm not saying objectively, like, this is the best chapter, but I like Stranger Things because I'm a big Demogorgon fan. But Resident Evil, it's a close second. Simply because I love playing as the Nemesis T-Type. It's just so much fun to play as, and it's really cool having these iconic characters, facing off other iconic characters and original characters. It's cool seeing Leon in other matches. It's really groovy seeing one of my heroes, Jill, facing off all these, characters out here. And Claire and Chris may be rare to encounter, but they're awesome to find in a match. Granted, it's really weird seeing Chris being carried by someone like the Legion or the Ghostface when it feels like, Chris could just punch them up, to the ground. But it's still groovy seeing all these characters, from the survivor horror genre being represented in DBD. So, give us classic Nemesis, please! I love his design in those games! Also, Nemesis, more like a Nemesis. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I don't know why I make Among Us jokes. I still haven't played that game yet. Sorry, people, for having to hear that. It's like, I don't want to say what time I'm recording this, but yeah, it kind of does things to you. Well, it appears we reached the end of this video. Maybe in the future I'll talk about more DBD chapters. Maybe talk about characters that I feel like would belong in DBD, like Springtrap. Or maybe become the lore master of the DBD community. Okay, maybe not the lore master, but I would like to talk about the lore someday. And for now, I'm just going to go start some 4 Souls cards. Maybe convince this one apparition to chill out, because seriously, it's been throwing a bunch of candles and vases and other stuff in the basement I have. I mean, I could eat it. Okay, let's not. Yeah, it's probably gonna find some spell to get rid of it. The basement appears to be shifting towards the right, I best recommend to get out while you can before something weird happens. Take care, everybody. Have yourself a groovy day. Take care. Bye-bye. Also, there was another hand that appeared on me, but ignore that part. And let me just blow away the candle.